Before we begin with this video, I would like to introduce you to my website www.learnfrenchbysuchita.com, where you will find recorded courses for all your French language needs. We have courses for DELF A1, DELF A2, DELF B1, TEF TCF recorded course, French phonetics as well. We have special courses for our school students ranging from grade 5 to grade 8. We also have courses for university students who are enrolled in certificate course or diploma course in Delhi University. And finally, we also have courses for our school students who are aiming to appear for their DELF Prem or DELF Junior examinations. So hurry up and check it out. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get into the video, and we are going to learn the definite articles in French. That means les articles définis. Now, before starting with the video, I would like to know from you that how many definite articles do we have in English? Just reflect upon. Yeah, of course, you just have one definite article in English, and that is the. So see, you have three articles in English, that is a, an, the. But out of them, a and an, they are your indefinite articles, and the is your definite article. The difference is that when you do not know anything about that object, let's say if I say marker, I do not know this marker belongs to whom. I would say this is a marker because I do not know whose marker is this, and that is indefinite article. Itself the word suggests indefinite. Yeah. And now let's move on to the definite article. The definite article is when you're sure about something. Let's say if I know that this marker is of Suchita, I would say this is the marker of Suchita because there I'm sure. If you talk about any mountain range, anything for which you're sure about, you always say the Himalayas. Yeah. So because you're sure about there is only one Himalayas in the world. So that is why definite article. Now in English, I just told you that there is only one definite article, and that is the. So if you want to say the book, the chair, the table, the clock, the fan, the room, you just have one way of saying. And the reason is, even if something is plural, let's say if I want to say the pens, the markers, even then we say the. There's no difference. The reason is that in English, the words are not gender based. That means what? If I say a table, the table, it will never come into your mind that the table is male or female, because it is not. The nouns in English, they are not gender based. Table, chair, fan, clock, whatever examples I'm giving you, they are not feminine, not masculine. Unlike French. In French, all the nouns that you talk about, let's say the door, that would be either masculine or feminine. That we are going to see in a while. But all the nouns are gender based, and according to the gender and according to the number, you decide which article to use, which definite article to use. So in English, you just have one way of saying the. However, in French, it is more complicated. You have 4 different ways of saying the, and those are le. Bah, il faut bien prononcer, hein. Le, la. Bah, il faut ouvrir la bouche. La, les, L apostrophe. Le, la, les, L apostrophe. Le, la, les, L apostrophe. Répétez s'il vous plaît. Le, la, les, L apostrophe. Now, if you see, the meaning of all 4 of them is the, right? Now we'll look at where to use which one. If the noun, we'll first look at this one. If the noun that we are talking about is plural, if that is plural, if let's say tables or fans or chairs or cameras, anything, then it will always take le, irrespective of masculine, feminine, begins with a vowel, anything. You don't have to really care about. If it is plural, you will always and always apply le. Okay. Second, L apostrophe. Now, first always check, is the noun plural? If it is not plural, move to the next one. If it is singular and it begins with a vowel. If it is singular and it begins with a vowel or the silent letter H, in that case you put L apostrophe. If it does not even begin with a vowel, then you have to apply your minds. Is it masculine or is it feminine? So if a word is masculine singular, you apply le, and if the word is feminine singular, you apply la. So that means you use le for the words which are masculine singular, la for the words which are feminine singular, le for the words which are plural, and L apostrophe for the words which begin with a vowel or the silent letter H, and the word should be singular. In that case, you use L apostrophe. So now we'll look at certain examples to explain you the concept in a better way. And we are going to begin with le. First of all, because you always begin by looking at the noun that you're talking about. Is it plural? So how do you get to know it is plural or not? You generally see by this, generally. Yeah. So if you see table, table. So see, in English, if I say singular one, it is table. However, in plural, it is tables. Table, tables. Chair, chairs. But in French, of course, you apply S, but you don't pronounce it. So even the singular one is table and even the plural one is table. Right? So how do you get to know that the other person who is talking, that he or she is talking about something which is singular or plural? That you get to know by the article he or she is using. So let's say if I'm using the singular article, that would be, I'm talking about the singular table. And if I'm using the plural one, so we say that the table word is plural in that case. So now here I've written all the nouns which are plural. So if they are plural, you never have to see masculine, feminine, begins with a vowel. No. Blindly you have to apply le. But that doesn't mean that the noun is not male or not female. Of course, the word table, that's female because that ends with an E. Right? So, les tables. Les tables, the tables. Chien, les chiens. Les chiens, the dogs. Les voitures. Les voitures, the cars. Les chaises. Les chaises, the chairs. So you see, les tables, les chiens, les voitures et les chaises. Now, let's begin with the nouns which are singular. So just now I told you, if the noun is plural, you do not have to care about masculine, feminine, beginning with a vowel. No. Just look at the noun, it is plural, just blindly apply le. Now let's move on to the nouns which are singular. Okay? For this, even for this, the noun should be singular. Now see, the noun is singular. The next step that you have to check is, does it begin with a vowel? Now here, I've written all the words which are singular or plural. They're all singular, of course. Très bien. Now if they are singular, the next step you have to check is, do they begin with a vowel? In this case, the vowel which are A, E, I, O, U, A, E, I, O, U, and the letter H which is mute. You don't pronounce it. Yeah. So even that is counted as, you can say that that is also counted as a vowel only because you don't pronounce it. Yeah. So if the word is singular and that begins with a vowel or the silent letter H, in that case apply L apostrophe. So that means, see, if you would have said this word without L apostrophe, the pronunciation would have been étudiant, étudiant. But now with this, it joins and it becomes l'étudiant. L'étudiant. The student. L'étudiant. Hôtel. Hôtel. With this, it becomes l'hôtel. Avion. L'avion. Ordinateur. L'ordinateur. Oreiller. L'oreiller. Ok? Alors, l'étudiant, the student. L'hôtel, the hotel. L'avion, the aeroplane or the airplane. L'ordinateur, that's the computer. And l'oreiller, which is the pillow. But that doesn't mean that the nouns we are talking about, they do not have any gender. Of course they have. Like for example, if I say étudiant, that is male. If I say hôtel, that is male. But since they begin with a vowel, you have to apply L apostrophe. Now, we'll look at the nouns which are singular and which are not beginning with a vowel. So, we are done with this step and this step. Now, we'll look at this one. So, first you always check, is the noun plural? Now check, is any of them is plural? No. Do they begin with a vowel? Any of them? None of them begins with a vowel. We'll move one step forward. Now we'll have to check, is my noun masculine or feminine? Now for that, the rule is 70 to 75% of the cases, in 70 to 75% of the cases, the nouns which end with E, they are generally feminine, generally. Yeah, but 20 to 25% of the cases, they are exceptional, where rule becomes opposite. So basically the words which end with E, they are feminine, and the words which do not end with E, they are masculine. But that rule applies in 70 to 75% of the cases. Now here what I can tell you is no word is an exception. So you can think that if it ends with an E, feminine. If it doesn't end with an E, it is masculine. Now check in all the cases. Is there any case wherein it ends with E? No. T, C, C, U, N, T. None of them. So that means all of them are masculine. So you say le lit. Le, bah, c'est vraiment important de bien prononcer. Le lit. The bed. Le parc. The park. Le sac. The bag. Le drapeau. The flag. Le pain. Pain. That's the bread. Le chocolat. That's a chocolate. So, le lit, le parc, le sac, le drapeau, le pain, le chocolat. Now, we'll look at the words which are singular and which are feminine. So, see, again we'll apply the same rule. Just check, is any of them is plural? First you always begin with checking, is it plural? None of them is plural. Then check, does it begin with a vowel? Now we'll check. T, B, P, F, C, C. None of them begins with a vowel. Then you have to check, is it male or is it female? Now see, I told you the rule, in 70 to 75% of the cases, the words which end with E, they are feminine, and the words which do not end with E, they are masculine. So, here none of them is an exception. So all of them end with E, that means they are going to be feminine. And if they are feminine, you are going to apply la. So you say la trousse, la trousse, which is the pencil case. La bouteille, bouteille, la bouteille, which is the bottle. La porte, la porte, that's the door. La fenêtre, la fenêtre, that's the window. La clé, La clé, that's the key. La couverture, that's the blanket. La trousse, la bouteille, la porte, la fenêtre, la clé et la couverture. Okay, without any further ado, let's get into the video and I am going to make you practice the definite articles. So before that, I'm going to give you a little recapitulation about the definite articles in English and also in French. So in English, you have 3 articles, a, and, the. Out of these 3 articles, a and an, they are your indefinite articles and the is your definite article. So indefinite articles you use for the nouns which are not specific. Like for example, this is a book. You do not know whose book is this. However, if you know that this book belongs to Sophie, you say this is the book of Sophie. Yeah, because you are definite about that. So you use the definite article. So in English, you just have one way of saying the definite article, and that is the book, the fan, the chair, the clock. Yeah, because in English, all the nouns, they are not gender based. As in table, it will never come into your mind that it is male or female. It is table. But in French, the nouns are gender based. Yeah. So now there are 4 definite articles in French. That's just a recapitulation. Le, la, les, l'apostrophe. Le, la, les, l'apostrophe. Now, first you always look at the noun. Is it plural? The noun that you're talking about, is it plural? If it is plural, you just apply le. If it is not plural, move one step forward and check. Does it begin with a vowel? If it does, apply l'apostrophe. Then, if it still doesn't begin with a vowel, then check, is it male or is it female? Now, what is the logic behind male or female? So, I told you that 70 to 75% of the times, the words which end with the letter E in French, they are feminine. Yeah. So if I say, let's say ville, so that ends with the letter E, that is feminine. We apply la. Now for the words which are masculine, you say le, and for the feminine words, you put la. But however, in English, all of them mean de. Yeah. Now, we'll apply the same logic in these examples we are going to practice. So you are going to do it with me. Allez, on commence. Poisson. Poisson. And I'm going to tell you in advance that, okay, this word is an exception. So therefore, there the rule will get. Now, let's begin. Poisson. Poisson. Is it plural? No, it is not. Does it begin with a vowel? No. Now check, is it male or is it female? It is not an exception. So therefore, it is not ending with the letter E. That means it is going to be masculine. And you say, le poisson, and that's the fish. Cuillère, cuillère, the spoon with which you eat. So now, is it plural? No. Does it begin with a vowel? No. It ends with the letter E, that means it is going to be feminine. So you say la cuillère, la cuillère. Viande. Is it plural? No, it is not. Does it begin with the letter which is a vowel? No. Is it male or is it female? It is feminine because it ends with the letter E. Alors, la viande. La viande, which is the meat. Now, musée. Musée. Is it plural? No, it is not. Does it begin with a letter which is a vowel? No, it is not. Is it male or is it female? I'm telling you in advance that this word is an exception. Since this word is an exception, the rule will get reversed. Now, it is ending with the letter E, so that means it is masculin. Alors, ça c'est le musée, the museum, le musée. Fruit, fruit. Allez, réfléchissez. Le fruit, la fruit, les fruits, l'apostrophe. Le fruit. Très bien. The fruit. Because it is not plural, doesn't begin with a vowel, and it is male. So you say le fruit. Next, boulangerie. Boulangerie, which is the bakery. So now, is it plural? No. Does it begin with the letter which is a vowel? No. Male or female? Féminin. Alors, la boulangerie. La boulangerie, the bakery. Lampe. The lamps. Lampe. Alors, féminin, masculin, pluriel. It is plural. So, you're simply going to apply les. Les lampes. This reflects that this is plural. Les lampes, the lamps. Couteau. Couteau, knife. So, you say plural? No. Begins with a vowel? No. Doesn't end with the letter E, so it is masculin. Alors, le couteau. Le couteau. Beurre. Beurre. It is not plural. Doesn't even begin with the letter which is a vowel. But this word is an exception. Since this word is an exception, the rule will get reversed. It ends with the letter E, so therefore it is masculin. Le beurre, the butter. Plat. Is it plural? Yes, it is. So you say les plats. Les plats, the dishes. And finally you have chemise. Chemise means shirt. Shirt that you wear. Is it le or la or les? It is la chemise. Bravo, hein? Très très bien. Now here I am going to give you a rule which will help you identify the exceptions. And that golden rule is most of the times no. Mostly in all the cases, the words which end with ion, ion, ion. All the words which end with ion, the combination ion, they are feminine. Mostly. More than even 99% of the cases, it is going to be feminine. So you say question. Question, féminin. Alors, la question. La question, which is the question. Then you have la solution. The solution. La solution. Natation. The swimming. Natation. Again, ION. That's feminine. So all of them, you can consider all of them an exception because none of them is ending with the letter E. Yeah? But then this is a rule that if it ends with ion, féminin. Alors, la natation. La natation, the swimming. Option. Option. It is feminine, but since it begins with a vowel, we will not say la option. So actually it had to be la option because it is feminine. But since there is a clash of two vowels, we say l'option. L'option. It becomes contracted, but yes, it is feminine. Organisation. Encore c'est féminin, but then since it begins with a vowel, so you say l'organisation. Together, l'organisation. Région. Région, the region, and that's la région. La région. Animation. Encore c'est féminin. But since it begins with the letter A, which is a vowel, so you say l'animation, but it is féminin. Continuation. Continuation, continuation. Again, it is la continuation. So golden rule, if it ends with ION, mostly it is going to be féminin. La question, la solution, la natation, l'option, l'organisation, la région, l'animation et finalement la continuation. So without any further ado, let's get into the video, and in this video we are going to learn how do you make the plural of nouns. That means we are going to learn pluriel des noms. So first let's discuss how do you make the plural of nouns in English. Let's say if you have a marker, how would you say that it is plural in English? You will say markers. So you add an S. Now, if you want to say the plural of a book, you will say books. Again, you added an S. If you want to make the plural of a table, how do you say that? You will say tables. So, again, you added an S. But in French, you have certain other rules to make it plural. So, there are 6 rules in French to make a noun plural. I have divided this video into 2 parts. In the first part, we are going to learn some rules and we'll continue this topic in the second part of this series. So, let's begin with this video, and the first rule is you make plurals of most of the nouns by adding an S to the singular form. Okay. Now, for example, you have un garçon. Un garçon, which means a boy. Now, you want to make it plural. So, first, there are certain articles here, which are un. You can have un or une. How do you make the plural of that? The plural of un and une is they. So, these are indefinite articles. If you do not know what are indefinite articles, I am dropping the link in the card above. You can watch that video and then come back here again. Okay, so the first example is un garçon. A garçon, which means a boy. How would you make its plural? So, the plural of un is they, and the plural of garçon would be made by adding an S. So, it becomes some boys. Now, there is something which is different from English here. If this would have been in English, you would have said boy and boys. So, the pronunciation varies. But in French, the pronunciation is same. Even this is garçon, even that is garçon. So, you do not pronounce the last consonant, which is S. Okay. So, you make plural by adding an S, but you do not pronounce that S. So, the singular form will be pronounced as un garçon, and the plural form would be des garçons. You do not pronounce the last S. A boy, some boys. Un homme, which means a man. The plural would be des hommes. Homme avec S. A man, some men. Okay. So, I added an S to make it plural, and the plural of un, which is an indefinite article, is they. Now, the next example that we have is la fille. La fille, which means the girl. Now, le, la, L apostrophe, the plural of all of them would be les. By the way, these are definite articles. If you do not know what are definite articles, I am dropping the link in the card above. You can watch that video and then come back here again. Now, la fille, which means the girl. Now, the plural of la would be les, and the plural of fille would be made by adding an S. However, you will not pronounce that S. So, la fille, and the plural is les filles, the girls. The fourth example that we have is la famille. La famille, which means the family. Now, how would you make its plural? Les familles avec S, but you will not pronounce that S. So, les familles, the families. Let's continue with the second rule, and that is nouns ending with S, X or Z, they do not change into plural. That means when you make the plurals of that, there will not be any change. Allez, le premier exemple, le bras. Le bras, which means the arm. Now, the plural would be les bras. Did you notice one thing, that it already ends with an S in the singular form? So, while making plural, there was no change in the word. However, the definite article le, yes, that changed into les. So, le bras, the arm, les bras, the arms. Okay. On continue avec le prix. Now, here it ends with an X. Le prix, the price. The plural is les prix. Again, it ends with an X. So, in the plural, it will not change. Les prix. So, le prix, which means the price. Les prix, which means the prices. On continue avec le nez. Le nez, which means the nose. Now, it ends with a Z. So, to make its plural, you will not add anything. And it will become les nez. Les nez, which means the noses. Quatrième exemple, le pays. Le pays. Now it already ends with an S in the singular form, which means the country. So le pays, the plural would be les pays. There will not be any change in the word and it becomes the countries. You have to only change the article. Okay. Now the last example that we have is le choix. Le choix, which means the choice. Now it ends with an X in the singular form. So in order to make it plural, you will write les choix. Les choix, which means the choices. You just have to change the article. If the noun is ending with S or X or Z, you will not change anything in the noun and it becomes plural just by changing the article. Now the third rule is nouns ending with EAU. The nouns which have the combination EAU at the end, they take X in the plural. Now if you see all the examples that I have written here, they have EAU at the end. So in order to make them plural, I have added an X. However, this X is not pronounced. You do not pronounce that. The pronunciation of singular and plural, that remains same. On commence avec le bateau. Le bateau, which means the boat. The plural is les bateaux. Les bateaux avec X. Now it becomes the boats. So le bateau, les bateaux. Deuxième exemple, le bureau. Le bureau, which means the office, or it also means the desk. Now it again ends with EAU. So the plural is les bureaux. Bureau avec X, which means the offices, or it can also mean the desks. Troisième exemple, le cadeau. Le cadeau, which means the gift. Again, it ends with the combination EAU. So in order to make it plural, you will put X. Les cadeaux. The pronunciation doesn't change. Le cadeau, les cadeaux, which means the gifts. Quatrième exemple, le chapeau. Le chapeau, which means the hat. Again, it ends with the combination EAU. So in order to make its plural, you will put an X. Les chapeaux, which means the hats. And the last example that we have is le château. Château means the castle. Again, it ends with the combination EAU. To make its plural, you will put an X. Les châteaux. So the nouns which end with EAU, you put X to make their plurals, but the pronunciation doesn't change. Now the fourth rule that we have is nouns ending with EU, they also take X in the plural. So wherever you will see a noun which is ending with EU, the combination EU, there also in order to make its plural, you will add an X. Par exemple, le cheveu. Le cheveu. Cheveu, which means a single hair, the single strand of hair. Now in order to make its plural, you will put les cheveux. Cheveux avec X. There it means the plural, the hair. Okay. So everywhere, all the examples that I have given, they have EU combinations at the end. Okay. So in order to make their plural, I have added an X everywhere. So le cheveu, which means the single strand of hair, and the plural is les cheveux, which means the hair, the plural. Okay. Next, le jeu. Le jeu, which means the game. Now in order to make its plural, I have again added an X. Les jeux. Les jeux, which means the games, the plural. Le lieu. Le lieu, which means the place. In order to make its plural, les lieux. Lieu avec X. But this X you don't pronounce. So le cheveu, les cheveux. Le jeu, les jeux. Le lieu, les lieux. And the next example that we have is le neveu. Neveu, which means the nephew. Now in order to make its plural, you will add again an X and it becomes les neveux avec X. Les neveux, which means the nephews. But here we have one exception, which is le pneu. Le pneu. Pneu means the tire of a car. So you can say le pneu, plural would be les pneus avec S. So the rule was that if the noun ends with EU, then you put an X. But in this case, since it is an exception, it ends with EU, but still you put an S to make its plural. So that's an exception. Le pneu, les pneus avec S. So let's just revise all the 4 rules. The first rule was generally you put an S to make the plural of nouns. The second rule, the nouns which end with S, X or Z, they do not change into plural. The third rule, nouns ending with EAU, they take X in the plural. And the fourth rule is nouns ending with EU, they also take X in the plural. But in all the 4 cases, the pronunciation of the singular word and the plural word will remain same. So let's continue with the 5th rule to make the plural of nouns, and that is nouns which end with OU at the end, the combination OU at the end, they take X in order to make them plural. So let's look at few examples which have OU at the end. Voila. So all the examples, they have OU at the end. The first one being le genou. Le genou. Genou, which means the knee, the part of your body, the knee. Now in order to make it plural, you will write les genoux. Les genoux avec X. Avec X, which means the knees. So le, which is your definite article, that will change into les, and genou, since it ends with OU combination at the end, so it takes an X to make it plural. However, the pronunciation doesn't change. Le genou, les genoux. You will not pronounce that X. Let's continue with the second example, and that is le joujou. Le joujou. Joujou means the toy. Now it again ends with OU combination at the end. So in order to make it plural, you will add an X. Les joujou, and it becomes the toys. Again, the pronunciation doesn't change. Le joujou, les joujou. So the toys. Next, le chou. Le chou, which means the cabbage, the vegetable that you eat. Again, it ends with OU combination at the end. So in order to make it plural, you will add an X, and it becomes les choux. Les choux avec X, the cabbages. Next, le caillou. Le caillou. Now, it is not pronounced, double L is not pronounced in French. In what case? When you have I-double-L together, you do not pronounce double L. By the way, if you want to know what is the pronunciation of I-double-L along with certain examples, I am dropping the link in the card above. You can watch that video in order to know the pronunciation of I-double-L. Now, le caillou. Caillou, which means the pebble, the stone. Okay. Now, in order to make it plural, you will add again an X because it ends with OU combination at the end. And it becomes les cailloux. Les cailloux, the pebbles. And the last example that we have is le bijou. Le bijou, which means the jewel or the jewelry that you wear. Now it again ends with OU combination at the end, and in order to make it plural, you will add an X. So it becomes les bijoux avec X. So the nouns which end with OU combination at the end, if you want to make them plural, you usually put an S to make them plural. So here you have few exceptions to this rule, and they are le cou. Le cou, which means the neck. Again, it has OU combination at the end. So the rule was if the noun ends with OU, then it takes X to make it plural. But since it is an exception, you are not going to put X. You are going to put an S to make it plural. So le cou, which means the neck, and in order to make it plural, les coups avec S, since it is an exception. Now the plural becomes the necks. And the next exception that we have is le clou. Le clou, which means the nail. Now not this nail, but the nail that you fix in the wall. Okay. Le clou. Again it has OU combination at the end. But since it is an exception, you will not put an X to make it plural. You will put an S to make it plural. Les clous. And the meaning is the nails. So le cou and le clou, they are the exceptions to this rule. Now the next rule that we have is the nouns which end with AL, they take AUX in order to make them plural. Now it is a little different rule in terms of pronunciation also. Till now the pronunciation of singular and plural was same. But in this rule the pronunciation of singular and plural will also change. Now what is the rule? All these nouns which I have written on the left hand side, they all end with AL combination at the end. So all of them have AL. Now what do you have to do? If a noun ends with AL, then you need to cut AL, which you were not doing in the previous cases. Like for example, if the word was ending with OU, you had to add X to make it plural. You were not cutting that OU. But in this case, you have to cut that AL and you have to add AUX to make it plural. So it becomes un journal, which is a newspaper. Now in order to make it plural, you will cut this AL at the end and you will add AUX to make it plural. So it becomes des journaux. Des journaux. Un journal. Des journaux. And it becomes some newspapers. So you see the pronunciation also changes. Un signal. Un signal. The combination GN, the sound is near. Un signal. In order to make it plural, it becomes des signaux. Signaux. So you cut AL at the end and you add AUX to make it plural and it becomes some signals. Des signaux. Des signaux. Allez. Un cheval. Un cheval, which means a horse. Now it ends with AL at the end. In order to make it plural, you will put des chevaux. Des chevaux. You cut AL and add AUX and the meaning becomes some horses. Des chevaux. Un animal. Animal and animal. Again it ends with AL. In order to make it plural, you will cut AL and add AUX, so it becomes des animaux. Des animaux. Some animals. Des animaux. Next. Un hôpital. Un hôpital, which means a hospital. Again it ends with AL combination. In order to make it plural, cut AL and put AUX. And it becomes des hôpitaux. Des hôpitaux. Some hospitals. So I repeat the rule for you. The nouns which end with AL combination, you have to cut that AL and you need to add AUX to make it plural. Now here I have written few exceptions in front of you. All the nouns which are there on the left hand side, they all are again ending with AL. So the initial rule was if the noun ends with AL, you put AUX to make them plural. But since these are exception, you will not put AUX to make them plural. You will simply put an S to make them plural. So the first example that we have is un bal. A ball, which means a ball. Now, not the ball with which the children play. It is the ball dance that I am talking about. Now, a ball. It is ending with AL, but in order to make it plural, you will simply put an S, since it is an exception. So, you will just put an S to make it plural. Okay. The next one, a carnaval. A carnaval, which is a carnival. Again, it ends with AL, but since it is an exception, you are just going to add an S to make it plural. And it becomes some carnivals. The third example and the third exception is un festival. Un festival, which is a festival. Now, in order to make it plural, you will simply add an S and it becomes des festivals. Des festivals. Avec S. Some festivals. And the next is un chacal. Un chacal, which is a jackal, it's an animal, and it ends with AL, but since it is an exception, you will put an S to make it plural, and it becomes des chacals avec S, and it becomes some jackals. Now the last rule that we have is some plural forms are completely irregular. For them you have to just learn what is their plural. You cannot do anything about the rule here. Now the first exception is an I, which is an I. Now usually you put an S to make it plural, but this word is totally an exception, totally an irregular word, and to make it plural you will put des yeux, and the word completely changes. So an eye, des yeux, which means some eyes. Now this combination of OE, if you do not know its pronunciation and its usage, I am dropping the link in the card above if you want to know what is the use of this OE in French. Now the next is madame. Madame, which means madam, or it also means Mrs. In order to make it plural, you will put mesdames. Mesdames. So the word completely changes. Okay. The next is monsieur. Monsieur, which means Mr., or it also means sir. Now in order to make it plural, the word completely changes and it becomes monsieur. The pronunciation is same, monsieur and monsieur, and it becomes sirs. Okay. The next is mademoiselle. Mademoiselle, which means miss. In order to make it plural, it becomes mesdemoiselles. Mesdemoiselles. So madame, mesdames, monsieur, mademoiselle, mesdemoiselles. So these are few irregular nouns.